some theory crafting that went on. Let's talk about some theory crafting that went on about.
This is a blooper reel and a half, this
Yeah,
one, isn't
all
it?
right. Okay.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's the Point, the show where we discuss varying forms of media and ask the question, what's the point? I'm your host, Michael, and joined as ever by our co-host, Matt.
Hey, how's it going? I was just going to look over there where the camera used to be.
Yeah, we're using new cameras. I'm not sure if you can tell. Let us know in the comments section if you think it's better than our previous videos. We would love to know your feedback. And whilst we're talking about that kind of stuff, feel free to rate this video in whichever way you see fit. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification icon for future updates. And if you're feeling extra generous, go ahead and share this video on your social media platform of choice. Unless for some reason your social media platform of choice happens to be Parler. Fuck that. Do not share us on that at all. Keep us away from that trash heap. Thank you.
Is that Trump Twitter?
It's Trump Twitter, yeah.
That's going to be the only Twitter he's allowed on.
No, he got his account back today. But anyway,
Not for
we're
long.
getting sidetracked. What's the point of discussion for today, Matthew?
Okay, guys. So today's discussion, we're going to broach the topic of something called theory crafting. Well, that's basically where, in between films or when new films are coming out, the fans out there let their imaginations run wild and come up with theories of what the filmmakers are going to do. We're going to discuss, first off, where it's come from and what it actually means.
And also kind of what our loose definition
Yeah.
for it is, because there isn't really an actual official definition for it.
And then we're going to discuss some theories that were quite prevalent out there in the movie industry and whether they showed out to be real or not real. And then we're going to broach
You mean true or
false. That's what I mean, yeah. And then we're going to broach...
Because they were real.
they were real.
No matter what, they were real. They weren't fake.
And then
Fake news.
Fake news, man. And then we're going to come up with a couple of theories that both me and Michael had and whether they turned out to be true. And
I also throwing you a curveball here. I want us to discuss what our current theories
I
are.
was just going to say that. And any future theories that us two numpties are coming up with.
Do you have anything in mind?
I do have something in mind, yeah.
Good to know.
So let's throw it back.
Let's just get into it.
Let's throw it back to you, Michael. What do you consider theory crafting?
Well, to me, it's almost an art form. It is the art of theory crafting. It seems to be something that has become more prevalent in modern day. I imagine back in old Shakespearean days, there must have been a similar kind of banter that went on in the pubs in London. You know, they go to the Globe Theatre to watch the latest Shakespeare play, and maybe after they'd all hang out at the bar wondering, what's Shakespeare going to come up with next, or what did that mean? You know, that was the forum for discussion of
I
movies.
think though it will have
and
been
film plays.
more loose because there are records about there when, let's say, people go see a Shakespeare, and then because the writer was so accessible to the fans at the time, people would ask him, "Oh, what are you going to write next, Will?" and all the other Marlowe, what are you going to write next? And all that.
Well, I think about that scene from Shakespeare with Love, or Shakespeare in Love, sorry, when he's in the pub and he's struggling and he doesn't know what to
And he
write.
just makes it up on the spot.
Well, I think it's Marlowe who you mentioned, right?
Yep.
He's talking to a bunch of the patrons about his latest play, and there's that moment where Shakespeare has a drink and he's like, "Good title." When what's the name?
Oh, I can't remember, but I know
King Lear.
No, King Lear was Shakespeare.
It was Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the theory crafting then comes from when they throw it back to Shakespeare, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm working on some. It's Ethel and the Pirate's Daughter. It's a comedy about pirates and somebody's daughter," and he's literally making it up on the spot. So yeah, back in
So
those
that's
days,
why I say it's an art form, right? Because it can lead to creating.
Well, it's obviously got a hell of a lot more prevalent recently, and I think there's been several reasons why. First off, the biggest one of all is the birth of the sequel. I think without sequels, the theory crafting as we have it now, and what people make up in their minds and anticipation for upcoming movies, I don't think exists.
Well, did live theatre ever have were there sequels?
Not really, I don't think so.
Like there was never any follow-ups to any Shakespearean plays. We're talking about Shakespeare.
But and I'll go into my reasons why I think this is because let's take what was a really good franchise, and then has just rapidly dropped off in the Alien franchise. Theory crafting will have come out when it was announced that James Cameron is doing a sequel, and it's going to star Sigourney Weaver. So just those two things, we're doing another Alien movie, Sigourney Weaver, and then you keep quiet. Everybody's going to instantly start thinking, well, what's happened to Ripley? What happened to her end? Last time we saw her, she was in a stasis pod, she was asleep. And the little cogs in their mind, because that's how we are as humans, will just start working, and they'll with the absence of information from James Cameron, they will make up their own ideas. And I think that's what birthed theory crafting.
The only question I have, though, because I wasn't around, or at the very least, I was a toddler in the late 80s, but Alien are before my time.
Mm-hmm.
The only question I have is, where were people discussing these things? Because I remember growing up in the 90s, you didn't know about movies until weeks before they were coming out, until you saw the trailer and the TV spot on television.
So this will have been the first seeds of theory crafting, and you must have heard the saying discussed around the water cooler.
You would have had to have been a really avid fan of these things,
and that's where it will have been born, around the water cooler at work, on lunch breaks, down the pub, chatting to your mates, because so we had a very small
down the what?
Down the pub.
What's that? What's a pub?
The bar.
What's a bar?
Yeah.
I've forgotten what it
to
is.
Go to those places. They are in distant memory, but so that's where it will have slowly formed, and then there was the invention of the internet, and it grew and grew.
It wasn't the invention of the internet; it was the invention of the forum on the internet, like a message board.
Well, what were some of the first forums?
Independent forums run by specific websites. I remember me and our other brother, we used to follow a website called theonering.net, it's still around. Maybe we'll throw it in the description, seeing as how I brought it up.
Yeah.
Pretty good website. It's essentially a Lord of the Rings fan website. And we used to be on the chat rooms and the forums daily during the Lord of the Rings films. Now, obviously, there wasn't much of a theory crafting going on for those films, given the fact that they were based off of books. But at least they were an adaptation, so there was still people wanting to discuss, well, how are they going to do this and how are they going to do that? So it's akin to theory crafting.
And then around 2007 was the you've seen the scene in Evolution where he flicks the lit match and it hits the little cells and it all just fucking explodes.
Yep.
That's what happened when Facebook showed up. Okay, so social media and opinions on social media after it came out are like buttholes. Everybody's got one. And being given a voice, and I think it's more the ease of being given a voice, especially as these got more and more.
Well, yeah, because when we got our first computer, it was one computer in the family.
Well,
and if I was on the computer, if I was on the internet, you couldn't be on the internet.
Yeah,
you had to take it in
was
turns.
Screeching, and Mum would go pick up the phone. And
nowadays, Mum's on an iPad, Dad's on his phone. Oh no, wait, Dads are usually on the computer. They're on their old PC because they're set in their ways. All the kids are on their phones. Well, heck, you can even get all this stuff on your Xbox now. Could you imagine back when we had our first PlayStation and Nintendo 64, thinking about going on the internet on those things?
When we first had social media, I know this sounds really lazy because this is what we're becoming as a species. You'd have to think about your theory and your thought. Let's say you thought about it at school, because you'd be at school. If you wanted to get that out there on the internet, you had to finish school, you had to get on the bus, you had to come home, you had to get home, you had to get to the point where
There's a lot of time to think
where you
about
could get to the computer, and by the time you get to the computer, you forget. Having one of these now allows you to instantly say something without putting this in gear.
Mm-hmm.
And more often than not, it's harmless, especially when it comes to theory crafting. But we've seen politically that kind of stuff can be really harmful.
Well, but I have to just add something as well, because now not now, but with the dawning of making money through advertising on social media, through YouTube advertising, through posting videos on Facebook and whatnot, it's not only just a forum for people to talk, but it's also people now have an excuse to keep doing it, a reason to keep doing it, because they can make money from this.
Right.
but no, like it's true. So now you're not at work all day because you're not working a job. You got 60,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel. That's all you do is talk about movies.
No, we got 68.
We have 68. No,
not 68,000.
I'm talking about successful channels.
Yeah,
successful channels. These people don't have to now go to work, and they're at home sitting in front of the computer just thinking, what's the next theory that I need to craft?
The awesome thing about it, though, it's turned people who would not necessarily be like TV stars or movie stars into actual YouTube celebrities, and we all watch them and we all lap it up. Like chatting about our good Canadian buddy's Star Wars theory last episode. Mm-hmm. The guy is a YouTube star, and the more
can I just interject real quick? So just not to ruin the art of the craft, right? I'm not saying that it's all about the money. That's just one reason why it's now become even easier for people to spend their time theory crafting. It's also because there's an audience for it. It's entertaining. People want to watch and debate these things because now you've got the comment section too, for instance. So you let's say you throw up this is my theory on what's going to happen in the next Star Wars movie, for instance. Now there's a comment section below that, so someone can watch that video and then join in on the debate and actually discuss it too. So there's an entertainment value. People enjoy these things.
If you think about theory crafting, is the next level of the movie trailer.
So with that being said, then why don't we move on to the next segment? We've got a couple of theories each that we've cherry picked from other sources that essentially people were all mulling about and talking about back in the day, and then when the movies and TV shows came out, they turned out to be completely false. Give us one.
I'm gonna pick a big one to start with, and because there was a lot of theories about it. Some turned out to be correct, some turned out to be completely wrong, and that is Rey's lineage.
Oh fuck! Do you know what we need? We need a little thing up here that says
no more Star Wars.
No, just one. You know, like when you're at work,
a Star Wars ticker.
No, when you're at work and it says how many days without an accident.
Yeah, how many?
It's like how many podcasts without talking about Star Wars?
But Star Wars fans are really good theory crafters. They come.
Are they though?
Well, no. Think about it. A good theory crafter is somebody who can just come up with something that's just so batshit crazy. You're like, how the fuck did you think of that? And Star Wars fans are great at it. They've got phenomenal imaginations. But what they also are is phenomenal at getting really pissed off when their theories don't come true. So if you think about The Force Awakens, it's been such a long gap since we'd had a Star Wars film, and it was an okay film. But at the end of it, everybody wanted to know why Rey was so strong in the Force. Maybe she was a Skywalker. Maybe because you hear those lines from Obi-Wan Kenobi. Maybe she's a Kenobi. Oh, but she's got the fighting style of Palpatine. The theories were just all out there.
And it's funny that you should say that too, because like the average viewer won't have picked up on any of that sort of stuff.
No, Star Wars fans will have, though. And for me...
That's why I say in contrast, it's interesting.
Well, that's just it, though. But for me, as a Star Wars fan, when I came out of The Force Awakens, I didn't think any of that. Because to me, the sequels were going to be linked to the Skywalkers through Ben Solo. That was the link. And Rey was a completely new character. Finn was a new character. But also there, people were saying, well, is Finn Force sensitive? And the theory factory was in overdrive. And then we got The Last Jedi. And literally 99.9% of those theories were tossed.
And I thought that was awesome.
And so this is the way. These are the several different
subverted my expectations.
Here's the several different ways you can look at this. It was great story writing and bold because they went to try and go a different direction. That might have upset the fans, but at least they tried. So you then had, well, if she's a nobody, why is she so strong in the Force? And then people start theory crafting after The Last Jedi, why is she so strong? And so on and so forth. And then the backlash from all the theory crafting that was going out there is what we got in The Rise of Skywalker. She turned out to be a Palpatine.
And this is also one of those situations where you kind of realize now it's going from being not just an art, it's actually becoming a little bit too...
It's affecting art.
Yeah, it's becoming too important to people, though.
Because...
I'm not saying like you shouldn't be making theories, but if if what you were planning or hoping or thinking in your mind, if your headcanon, what you wanted that to be ends up turning out to be completely wrong or false, you've got to just
let it go.
Yeah, just be like, all right, well, okay.
I'll tell you how I went down.
Because those Star Wars films are full of it. Like, everybody was expecting Snoke to be someone.
Yeah.
Like, nobody was thinking that back when the original Star Wars movies came out. After A New Hope, no one was thinking, I wonder who Darth Vader's son is.
No.
I wonder who Luke's father is. No one cared. No one thought about it. It wasn't even a twinkle in anyone's eye.
They didn't. But I'll tell you how far I went down these rabbit holes. So, when I heard out there that, because, again, the first time I saw Force Awakens, I didn't hear Obi-Wan Kenobi when she touched his lightsaber.
No, neither did I. I didn't hear it until I went and watched some theory crafting videos.
So somebody put out there that you could hear Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you can, and then it came out that
these are your first steps.
Ewan McGregor came in and recorded lines, and they took something that Alec Guinness said and
Ray?
Yeah, to sound like Ray. So that instantly got my brain going on the theory of crafting that Ray was a Kenobi. And to expand on it is, how does Ray become a Kenobi? Jedis are not allowed to love and have kids and all that. But if you watch the Clone Wars, you know that Obi-Wan Kenobi is in love with the leader of the Mandalorians, Satine. So my brain was like, he had a child with Satine. Satine hid her on Mandalore, but then to save her during the Mandalorian purge, she was put on the desert planet of Jakku. And that's the rabbit hole I was going down.
And that's crazy because I just didn't give a shit.
And well, no, this it's not crazy because that's a lot of people's minds.
No, sorry. It's not. I'm not calling you crazy. I'm saying it's just crazy to me that's how far someone is willing to go to invent a theory behind something. I'm just like, I guess I'll find out in the next film.
Well, that was it. The next film came along and we found out she was nobody. Then the next film came along and we found out she was a Palpatine.
Yeah.
What seems even more convoluted than my theory, because that theory means that you have to go back in time in your brain that old Palps got it all jiggy with somebody to have a kid. Now, did he do it before? Or did he do it? Or did he do it? Or did he do it after? So that's how theory crafting can then go crazy.
This is like a futuristic civilization. What's to say he didn't just have someone made by in vitro?
A cloner, yeah.
Or a clone.
But then you had the theory crafting, as you say, about Snoke. People were saying he was Darth Plagueis. Again, Star Wars fans, the average Joe Schmo would have no fucking idea who that is. And they might go, Plagueis, that sounds familiar, because it was said once in the Revenge of the Sith.
Is it Plagueis or Plagius?
Plagueis.
Okay.
Darth Plagueis the Wise at the Bubble Opera, he tells him. And it was just like, people couldn't hold the fact that he was...
People couldn't hold the fact.
Yeah, I don't know what I meant. People couldn't get used to the fact that he was nobody. He was just another bad guy. So it turns out that she's a Palpatine by the third film, which, again, made my theory completely wrong. The difference was, I didn't get all butthurt that my theory was wrong. I got butthurt because I didn't like the film because I thought it was poorly made.
Can I ask you a quick question? This bears no consequence at all on the topic, but were you really, really expecting that she was going to be a Kenobi by the time we got to that movie?
Oh no! By the time we got to that movie, I thought she was. Hang on, no. Let me rephrase that. Before that movie was released, I thought she was a nobody. I was like, oh.
So you believed the film.
So Last Jedi subverted my expectations and made her a nobody. I was like, huh, all right, fine, if we're going to go. And in a way...
It's so much more powerful.
Well, it's not the fact that she's just a nobody. What it says to me is that there are Force-sensitive beings throughout the universe. Mm-hmm. You don't need to be part of this lineage to be a Force user. Which, if you think about it, if the Jedi Knights had like 10,000 Jedi Knights...
We have another podcast you can go check out that, basically.
Yeah.
We touch on that.
So that was my Star Wars one. Do you want to talk?
Well, I mean, you went like super crazy nerd pop culture central on yours, so I'm gonna bring something up. I found this on a website, pretty much listing all of these theories that turned out to be incorrect, and I'd never seen this one before, which is why I want to use this one. But the theory is that Chris Pratt's character in Jurassic World, Owen, was actually the young boy from the beginning of Jurassic Park.
The one that Sam Neill scares?
The one that Sam Neill terrifies when he's like...
Traumatizes for life?
It doesn't look very scary. looks like an overgrown turkey, I think is the quote the kid
Chicken
says.
or turkey.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And so like so Dr. Grant is all like, oh my god, I can't believe the disrespect this 12-year-old showing me, the paleontologist. Like,
Because I'm so good with children.
he's such a dickhead. And so he essentially scares this kid straight, claiming that he's showing no respect.
What, by threatening to slash his guts?
Well, that's what Grant thinks he's doing. Is like, kids these days don't show
Yeah.
any respect, so I'm going to scare some respect into him. And we actually have it in Jurassic World that Owen basically draws quite a lot of attention, which makes you think this theory might actually be true, but he draws a lot of attention to the fact that in order to get along with raptors and get that relationship that he has with them when he's training them, is you got to show respect. You got to become part of the pack. So that's it. That's the theory.
See,
Because Grant accused this kid of having no respect for a billion-year dead animal, that resonated with him and caused him to become a raptor herder.
see, the good thing about that theory though is there's no way of disproving it, unless the creator comes out and goes, "No, it's not." But it's
in my opinion, it's disproved by the lack of proof. Like all we're going on is that that whole lesson of teaching him some respect resonated with this kid into adulthood and caused him to somehow want to become a velociraptor trainer.
to me that
whereas realistically, that lesson that Dr. Grant gives this kid was more likely to, as you say, traumatize him and cause him to become an absolute delinquent alcoholic when he's older.
that there is fans.
Hey, we haven't gone depressing in a long time.
No, that's their fans going way too deep.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go with one here. Prometheus. Fans that have theorized that the engineers, when you see them at the start of Prometheus, because again, there's no way of proving this, unless they make knowing Ridley Scott, probably make another prequel film about this.
I also don't think Ridley Scott is the type of director who actually listens to any
people,
of that
no.
stuff.
So, if you remember the beginning of Prometheus, there's a scene where there's the engineers on a planet and there's spaceships up there.
Yeah.
One of them drinks the goo and then starts to disintegrate and fall and sets life out. Some fans out there have theorized that they leave an engineer on Earth and he's resurrected and he's Jesus Christ. Now that is batshit crazy, that an engineer is Jesus Christ. But the craziest thing about it is, why would you even theorycraft that? How does your brain get into that way of thinking?
Well, not to mention that the event that takes place in that scene is meant to be prehistory.
Yeah, way primordial.
Yeah, billions and billions of years ago. So, what? They came back?
No, he's
2,000 years ago.
No, he's in a stasis on Earth to be released to guide us as Jesus did.
And again, that's one of those theories, in my opinion, that is disproven by the lack of proof.
Yeah,
it's a wild theory.
So
because you could break down all these theories into different categories. You've got unsubstantiated, which is just something you're just making up, essentially, just something you want. And then you've got wild theories, which there's a little
batshit crazy.
Yeah,
Theories.
kind of like the Jurassic Park one too, where there's a little bit of logic to it, but realistically, the more you think about it, the more it falls apart. And then there is really clever, well thought out theories, which I honestly.
Let's do the theory you had about Bond, and whether we actually believe that the films have changed to fit the theory, because the theory ended up being true, even though the first few of the new Daniel Craig Bond films said it wasn't.
Well, going into Daniel Craig's tenure as Bond, there was this, we've got no more material to work with.
Can't use the Russians
can't use
or
any
the
more,
Cold War.
Yeah, can't use any more of Fleming's books because we've used them all. So, other than the fact that they're using Casino Royale, but Casino Royale itself is a nice contained story that only really brings up this idea of Le Chiffre and Mr. White's benefactors as kind of a little background.
And that's
detail.
only like the last quarter of the film as well that he shows up.
When we get into the next film, which is not a very good film, we find out the villains are this organization of people who
businessmen, basically,
who
and rich people.
It's an evil conglomerate called the Quantum of Solace
of lizard cabal, devil worshipping children eaters.
And so you can start jumping into like, well, who's there? Who's in charge of them? And then who's in charge of them? And who's in charge of them? Oh, and who's in charge of them? And it was kind of going somewhere interesting until we got to Spectre, And the movie's called Spectre, so there was like
No,
there was
kind of like
no
hidden
mi-
reveal.
Yeah, there was
there.
no mystery or anything. It was just like, nope, it's Spectre. It's not a new thing. We're going back to the old
So
thing.
I want to
Because
put
old
this.
things and things people are familiar with sell.
So I want to put this to you. Do you think they were going down the line of the quantum in Quantum of Solace of quantum being like a new Spectre and all that, and it didn't really gain traction? So they thought, well, everybody else is thinking out there that quantum's controlled by Spectre. Why don't we bring Spectre in? Or do you think that was their plan all along?
Well, I have to look this up real quick because there is source material that actually has Quantum of Solace is a thing in written Bond literature, but it's not an Ian Fleming book, so I'm not sure if that can count.
Well, no, I'm asking your personal opinion.
What did I think?
Yeah, did you think that they kind of like pivoted away from Quantum being the big bad overarching organization?
Well, no, because
it didn't really feel.
It's there at the end of the movie when he leaves. Is it Green?
Mr. Green?
I forget
Yeah,
the villain's name.
Yeah, Oliver Green. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying
You
though.
asked me a question. Let me answer it.
No.
When he leaves him out in the
Desert with it
desert,
all.
he turns around and says, "You don't want to be fucking with the people I work for."
Yeah, but that's because he works.
Hinting again that like just like we had at the end of Casino Royale. Well, who did Mr. White work for? Well, he works for Quantum of Solace. Well, who does Quantum of Solace work for? Oh, so every bloody movie you find out that there's
See, and I didn't think that. I thought at the end what Green meant was you don't want to be fucking with Quantum.
Yeah.
And I think that with that film not doing as well as it did and Green not being the greatest bad guy, they were like, well, we kind of have to change directions here and try and get some, what's the word? Try and get some legitimacy back to the bad guy, and that's why they fell back onto Spectre.
Yeah, realistically, what the people behind making the Bond movies were doing was they were always leaving the door open. Leaving the door slightly open to bring Spectre in if they had to. So before we go into our final segment, I feel like we should talk about what happened between the Avengers Infinity War and the Avengers Endgame.
Okay, so set up. Infinity War, third movie. We finally get to see Thanos and we finally get to see our heroes take him on. And then the ending that none of us expected. Thanos wins, snaps his fingers, half the universe is dead.
Well, no, people expected that because the finger snap is a famous thing.
Yeah, but I think they might have expected it halfway through a film and then it to be resolved. They didn't expect the movie to end.
Oh, to end that way,
with
yeah.
half people dead.
And to those who haven't read the Avengers comics like myself,
yeah,
I obviously was like,
and,
okay.
And the movie ends with a bit of melancholy feeling that our heroes are defeated. Thanos is on his farm, kicking back, having some Coronas with his melons, and movie ends. Thanos has won.
Yeah, and I honestly have to say, like, it left me feeling really depressed walking out. Probably more to do with the fact, though, because like you said, you expect that kind of thing to take place in the second or third act of a movie, not necessarily, and how it be resolved. So, but that's where my theory crafting brain starts kicking in.
I think
when I got home, I thought to myself immediately, I was like, hold on a second, there's 2 more Spider-Man movies to come out. Like, how can
there's another Avengers movie? So then we had, what was the gap? It was just over a year, wasn't it? A year.
Infinity War was 2018.
Yeah, so it was just over a year before.
Or was it 2017?
17, 18, I think, for Endgame.
It was it was about a year between.
So everybody's theory crafting was going into overdrive. That they were going to go on a massive mission, get the stones back one by one, how they were going to do it. And then the Russos basically pulled the rug from underneath us because we get the start that we expect. We see the aftermath. We see Steve and Natasha struggling with what's happened, but then they find a glimmer of hope. They find out where Thanos is. Tony obviously gets rescued. Spoilers. So they go out to get the stones back, and then Thor chops his head off because he's destroyed the stones. They're gone. So the destroying of the stones was bad enough because I think they timed it really well that your brain didn't have time to process that the stones were gone and what's happened is done. There's no way of undoing it. And the reason why your brain doesn't have time to process that is because Thor chops his head off so quickly. And then it fades to black 5 years later. So anybody's...
5 years later.
A 5 year later. Anybody's theories about how they were going to get people back were... I'm guessing anybody that said that they knew that they were going to do a time heist... I call bullshit on that. But
The
anybody,
closest anyone probably got to it was saying there'll be a time travel plot of some
Yeah.
kind. Not that it would be this elaborate, multiple parallel universe
time heist thing.
time heist. Yeah.
And that was the one I think that blew everybody's mind, because all their theories, because even though we got Rey as a Palpatine, some people theory crafted it by the way she fights.
Well, and again, given the history behind the Star Wars universe, it was kind of
Gotta be
it was kind of
linked
obvious what some
somehow.
of these things. Yeah, there was going to be some
But the-
hereditary thing, a lineage thing. Whereas with the Avengers situation, it's like, okay, what are they going to do?
The Russos did a very good job of laying the bait for us, to then allow people to nibble on that worm for a year and come up with as many crazy theories as they want, and then they yanked the hook straight out and grabbed us in the first 20 minutes of that film. So that was a case of where theory crafting helped the movie experience, because nobody experienced it.
Well, and there's a great example of a theory that people had that a lot of people were probably worried, especially after Captain Marvel came out, was that Captain Marvel was going to be the one who actually eventually defeated Thanos.
Yeah.
And thank God, because even as I'm watching that final battle, I'm thinking, even when she shows up and destroys the ship all by herself, you're like, oh God, please don't.
Yeah.
It has to be one of the originals, and thank God, that's what it turns out to be.
So that's going to lead me then on to one of my theories that I still have now. And there's no way of proving it, and it's a batshit theory, and I don't know why I do it.
It's all happening in Bobby Ewing's head.
No.
It was just a dream.
He's in the shower. And that's another Avengers theory from the end of Endgame. Because it always bugged me that Cap was sat on that seat. Because if you go by the logic...
Hold on. I know what you're talking about, but explain that a little bit better.
I'm going to do. So
no, you didn't. That seat. Don't start that way. Talk about like that's
okay.
bizarre.
So
of a segue.
So there was a scene at the end of Endgame that always bothered me, and that's when at the end, when they're expecting Cap to come back, Bucky kind of like does the old head nod, Sam turns, and then there's Joe Biden sat on a bench. I mean, old Captain America, sat on a bench. Now, from the way we understand how the Hulk tries to explain time travel, there's no way that Tony, when he went back in time, put all the Soul Stones back, could have lived his life out with Peggy. Because if you travel to the past, that past then becomes your future, is what they say. So he couldn't alter his timeline that where he left. So for me, it was like, well, if he wanted to spend his time with Peggy and we see him dancing with her, he must have lived with her in an alternate timeline. And then Captain America grew up in our main timeline, went back to the alternate timeline, and lived with Peggy in an alternate timeline. But then how did he get back to the bench? We didn't see him come back through the gate portal, which he would have needed to do. So my brain went into overdrive on how this happened, and this is my theory. So Cap goes back to all the points at where the stones are removed to put the stones back. So he goes back to the base where Tony met his dad and puts the space stone back there. He goes back to see Tilda Swinton, the sorceress, and give her the stone back. He goes and puts the time stone back with the not the time stone, the reality stone with the collector. He goes and puts the power stone back with the Nova Core. He goes and puts the Mind Stone back in Vision's head, and that's how we get Vision back from WandaVision. But then there's the awkward one. It's like, how do you put the Soul Stone back? Now, he goes to Vormir. He goes,
what? The real awkward one is how do you put the red one, the ether back?
It's just in a box.
No, it's supposed.
Oh no, he goes in and injects.
He's got to go in and stab Natalie Portman.
So he doesn't go back there. He goes and stabs Natalie Portman. But then that allows the timeline from that to carry on. That's why they do it. But then it's the Soul Stone, which is the Mind Stone is back in Vision, but the Soul Stone is the one. So this is how Cap comes back to his timeline and lives to be an old man. He goes back to Vormir. I think it's Vormir, isn't it? He sees Red Skull, goes, "What up, buddy? How's it going?
That must have been awkward.
That, looking good there, man." He gives him the Soul Stone, and in return, the Red Skull gives him Natasha. Him and Natasha come back to Earth, and they live the rest of their life out together as a married couple. And she passes away of old age. and then Cap goes to see Sam to give him the shield at the right time because he's got a wedding ring on. And I think it's Sam says to him, he goes, you're gonna have to tell me about that someday. And he just looks at me and goes, no, I'm not.
No, I don't think I will.
I don't think I will. And our minds are then with the dance with Peggy is that he spent his life with Peggy, but there's no way he could have done that to then be back in the original Avengers timeline. The only way he could have done that is to go get the Natasha from that timeline who give her life, and he lives out his life with her because there was chemistry with them in Winter Soldier. And
not really any love or romance, though.
Yeah, but that would grow over years.
They do have a kiss.
Yeah, and that's Cap's first kiss out of the ice.
Yeah,
and that would grow over years, and that's why he doesn't need to tell Sam.
I still think that this pretty much boils down to being one of those unsubstantiated theories.
I know, but all theories are until you see the evidence.
But because I mean, realistically, there is no reason. There's nothing in the text anyway that indicates that that's what happened.
No, but
this is all definitely something going on.
Yeah,
more so in
there has to be a way that Cap gets back to his timeline as an old guy, and the only way to do it.
I think you're giving them far too much credit on the time travel.
I like to think that the dance we see with Peggy at the end is Cap going to fulfill his promise, and then he comes back and lives his life out with Natasha.
I think realistically, the Russos were just thinking to themselves, like, yo, we're going to have all these heroes on screen in a big climactic battle. No one's going to give a shit what the realism behind the time travel plot is going to be.
And all I say to the Russos is, you've vastly underestimated nerds.
Not necessarily, because people love Endgame. To me, it's one of the more. I don't hate it, but it's one of the more mediocre of the MCU.
It's
films.
the third best it's the third best of Avengers film.
Yes,
you've got
because of the problems with the time travel plot. Because I remember I was watching it the first time. I just kept thinking, I was like, wait, what? So if he goes into his past and he does this, and like I was constantly thinking, what the hell's going on?
That's
here?
why Hulk,
and it was constantly covered up and brushed under the rug by humor.
Yeah, and
like,
that's why,
is it Back to the Future? Or
but that's
is it
why Hulk
Time
explains it so quickly, so that you can't work it out.
Anyways, so my theory.
What's your crazy ass theory?
My theory at the moment. And I don't know if anyone else has thought this, because this one I honestly believe is now not unsubstantiated at all or a wild theory. This one is a great way to bring back the TV series Breaking Bad. If ever is it A&E?
AMC.
AMC. If AMC ever wanted to bring it back, this would be the perfect way to do it. So when Hank and Walt have that showdown, when Hank finds out. And Hank punches him and whatnot. Walt tells him, my cancer's back. Right,
yeah.
So we go through the rest of the series now thinking Walt's going to die. And it even ends with him after saving Jesse and he gets shot and whatnot. However, it's only Hank who knows this.
Knows
and Walt only tells Hank, because of the situation he's in. Because Walt's like this. He's playing on his sympathies and trying to get him to feel bad for him so he doesn't turn him in, because Walt is always trying to find a way to weasel out of the situation he's in every time he gets caught. So what actually happens is he doesn't die at all. He's cancer free. He's got a couple of gunshot wounds. Police show up, arrest him, and he ends up getting tried for all of his crimes and ends up in jail.
Yeah, but hang on. Apart from Hank, who knows that he's Heisenberg? There's only Hank, and Hank's dead.
By the time that he saves Jesse in that finale, there's no way he's getting out of that.
Oh, right, okay.
He's guilty.
That's why he goes, because he thinks he's a goner anyway.
Well, and they're also gonna find him there. So my theory is that, and this theory is so that it's only there because the odd chance that they're like, we need more money. Let's bring Breaking Bad back, because they've tried it with Better Call Saul, and they've tried it with the movie with the guy who plays Jesse in it. So now that they've got no options, they're gonna, if they ever want to make money off of that franchise, they're gonna have to bring the show back, and that's my theory. That Walt isn't dead. He did die.
Just gets out of prison.
He ends up coming out of prison, and what's the first thing he does when he gets out of prison?
Cooks meth.
Starts cooking meth again.
Did you? So I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm just gonna keep riffing here with another crazy ass.
Well, we were only supposed to do one, but hey, we can edit it out if it sounds like shit.
A crazy ass fan theory that The Walking Dead is the aftermath of a bad strain of Walter White's meth. And the reason for it is the car that he buys, the orange Challenger, is seen in the very first episode of Walking Dead rescuing Rick. It's the same car. Now, what probably happened was the studio was like, well, we got this car, let's just use it. But Thads have connected Breaking Bad.
The AMC verse.
Yeah, and a mutation of meth turns half the population into zombies.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we prattled on about all this for long enough. Let's finish up here. Wrap up with what is an example of a theory that you came up with in the past? Doesn't have to be in the era of the internet. It could have been just something you thought when you were a kid that turned out to be true, that you actually got right.
I'll let you go first.
Okay. So mine is from our much beloved sci-fi series, Battlestar Galactica, the reimagined series. So as we know, Ronald D. Moore pretty much didn't know where it was going to end or how it was going to go. So there's a scene at the end of episode 10 of season 4 where the fleet and the Cylon rebels finally arrive at Earth. And as I'm watching this, I'm thinking to myself, well, unless there's going to be half a season of shenanigans going down on Earth, this isn't Earth. There's something going wrong here. Something's going to be bad. Lo and behold, they get down to the planet. They find out that it's a nuclear wasteland, and civilization there is gone. And now you're like, oh crap! And the cogs are going in my head, and I'm thinking to myself, so this isn't Earth. Wink, wink. They are going to eventually come across another planet, and that's going to be Earth, and they're going to populate and colonize, and they're just going to be like, well, let's just call this Earth. And that's actually exactly what ended up happening.
Yeah.
So much so that I remember when that scene, that sequence, right after the Galactica jumps for the final time and breaks its back, and it's flying over the moon, and all of a sudden you see Africa, one side of the Earth lit up, and it's the continent of Africa. I was just like, I couldn't speak. I was like, wow. When you think about it, though, now it's pretty obvious that that's probably where they were going. But I did think that at the time. This is what, 2009,
and this was way before that they'd even got to somewhere remotely called Earth that you thought that.
Well, no, Earth was Earth. It was the Cylon, the 13th colony, Earth. It was Earth, but it was obliterated by civil war and a nuclear holocaust. So the rest of that season is everyone like all depressed and the fleet's falling apart. You have a little civil war. It's all like it's just half a season of where are they going with this?
Yeah,
and
I do have to admit that the only thing I didn't like about the second half, I didn't like Gator's turn. He was one of my. I liked him. I had a lot of empathy for him, and then to see the way he turns. But yeah,
it needed to be one of those characters in order to add weight to the situation.
I guess so.
Like if it was someone like Doc Coddle, for instance,
because you do still feel sorry for him at the end, even though he's done horrible things.
Mm-hmm. We could have an entire episode about this. Battlestar Galactica, what it does amazingly is painting grey characters.
We could call it "What's the point of using the word frack?"
Yeah, the only truly like good guy character in that whole show is
Apollo.
Yeah, maybe
at a push.
Yeah.
Gaius Baltar. Well, I can't think of one offhand, but I know I predicted the Pixar theory, and I was right about that. And we can do an entire show on that one.
Which one?
That they're all connected.
You thought of that?
I was the
independent of everyone else.
I was the first one to come up with that
because like everybody believes in that. Okay, well,
that is one I really want to flesh out though in an episode. Yeah, because it's such a good.
Probably a good place to end it then. Okay, well, with that being said, if you've got anything to add, let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, thanks for watching.
Yep, thanks for watching. Cue the music.